Donald Trump says he still recommends his plan to take over Gaza, but won't impose it. Trump had suggested the entire population of the Strip should be forcibly removed and resettled elsewhere. His comments follow the conclusion of a meeting of Arab leaders in Riyadh that discussed the future of the Strip. Leaders from Egypt, Qatar, Jordan, the United Arab Emirates, and Kuwait attended the talks hosted by Saudi Arabia. All right, let's bring in our White House correspondent, Kimberly Halkett in Washington, D.C. Kimberly, good to speak with you. What else are we hearing from Donald Trump?
Yeah, with regard to those comments by the U.S. president, not only is the U.S. president saying that he's not going to oppose his plan, that he's only recommending it. What he's saying is that the reason for this is that the bottom line is the United States believes there's just no future for Hamas, and that once Hamas is gone, the plan is for the United States to start developing the Gaza Strip, that they believe that on the part of the United States that the residents of Gaza, Palestinians, really don't want to live there, that given the choice, they would rather live somewhere else. And if they had the option, they would leave, he says. Now, what the U.S. president is also saying is that with regard to the fact that there have been bodies that were returned by Hamas as of yesterday, what he says with regard to those bodies, that Hamas has not lived up to the conditions of the ceasefire, that the fact that one of those bodies was not the captive that was expected is something that the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has a right to be angry about. He says that the handover was in a manner that was unimaginable, brutal, and in modern times, simply unacceptable. And he also says that the Israeli Prime Minister has a right to be angry about that. He says the conditions of the captives that were released earlier was also unacceptable. He says that they were released in poor condition, similar to that of they had been held in conditions that are similar to a concentration camp. And he says he believes that Hamas is releasing captives in order of the best conditions first, and that those that are still remaining are in even worse condition.
All right, that's Al Jazeera's White House correspondent, Kimberly Halkett, live for us from Washington, D.C. Kimberly, thanks so much. Marwan Bishara is Al Jazeera's senior political analyst. He joins us now live from Doha. Marwan, so Trump is now saying that his ceasefire plan that he was advocating before, that it's a recommendation. This is a very different tone from what he was saying just days ahead of King Abdullah of Jordan's visit to the White House. Do you think that this is in response to the meeting that happened in Saudi Arabia today, or is it just Trump flip-flopping?
I think it does. I think it has a lot to do with what is going on, or what went on Riyadh today. But yes, to your point, he has been kind of wiggling around the edges when it came to this. He doubled down a couple of times, but we know that every other lieutenant of his, including his special envoy, his Secretary of State and everything, no one is promoting the idea. I think everyone understands, except Trump, that this is mad. It's madness. The important point here, Mohammed, is that there is method to the madness of the idea. And I think that's where we need to focus. We need to focus on the rationale behind it. I would say the following. He made the provocation in order to provoke the Arabs into responding with the way I think they probably are responding in Riyadh and in a few days out of Cairo. So you could say that effectively he succeeded through his mad idea into getting the Arabs to meet, to think, reflect, ponder, and come up with something that we will know more about it come March 4th. But the early signs are that they feel the need to come up with something that somewhere between what they came up with back in November in their summit and what Trump is suggesting the last couple of weeks. And that's why whatever the Arabs are coming with, whatever Saudi Arabia and Egypt are recommending, will be a compromise between their ideal and the Palestinian rights and the madness that had been coming out from the White House.
Marwan, you were talking just a moment ago about this meeting that took place in Riyadh today. You also mentioned the fact that there's going to be this emergency Arab League summit that's happening on March 4th in Cairo. Obviously, both very significant when it comes to diplomacy in the region, when it comes to the response to Trump, when it comes to laying the groundwork for what will happen in Gaza. I'm curious to get your opinion on the fact that obviously reconstruction is going to be a big part of the discussions. We know that, but also the issue of governance going forward in Gaza. How much do you believe that was discussed in Riyadh, and how much do you think it will be discussed come March 4th?
Well, look, you just put your finger on it, right? I don't think reconstruction as a real estate project is a problem, is an issue. It's because Trump is a real estate man, and most of the people around him, including and especially his special envoy to the Middle East, is also a contractor of sort. They're thinking, or they're elaborating on the reconstruction as a real estate part of it. But that's easy. I mean, you look around you here in the Middle East. I mean, I don't think there is anywhere else in the world as busy, perhaps only China, in constructing. No one knows how to construct better than the Middle East. I think the issue of importance is that of governance, that of the day after the ceasefire. Who will be managing, ruling in Gaza? Of course, the Israelis, as you know, want to maintain some kind of an oversight over whoever, and they, in fact, want to maintain some kind of a presence on the border with Egypt. But the main question is, who will be managing the affairs of Gaza? The Palestinian Authority, as we all know, they said that they should be, because Gaza is part of the Palestinian state that's been recognized by most countries in the world, more than 2/3, and hence it's the Palestinian Authority that should. Of course, Netanyahu and apparently Trump are against that. So the idea of sending Arab forces, that's not in the books at this point in time because we still have war and Hamas is still there. I think the main issue here is today that to get to reconstruction, you have to agree about who's going to govern Gaza. I think there seems to be a tendency among the Arab leaders, whether they are in Doha or in Cairo, there is, I would say, an influential bunch who would agree to Hamas being disarmed and perhaps even taken out from the equation completely. Now, of course, we also know that Hamas has already presented a concession of sort, a compromise, whereby they would be only from behind the scene, that they would stay in Gaza, they would not manage the affairs of Gaza, they would leave that to the bureaucrats, but that they will maintain their presence. That is rejected by Washington and Tel Aviv. And it seems that some of the Arab leaders with influence have come to the understanding that you cannot invest tens of billions of dollars in Gaza while Hamas is in charge.
And Marwan, of course, when you're talking about reconstruction, when you're talking about governance going forward, of course, war can't be going on. Now, tomorrow is going to be a critical day when it comes to the ceasefire, another exchange. We're coming close to the end of phase 1 of the Gaza ceasefire. I'm curious to get your thoughts about where you think things are when it comes to implementing phase 2 and potentially even phase 3. Are they very much in peril the way that it was thought that phase 1 was in peril just a few weeks ago?
Again, this is a very important question. And I think what we're going to be looking at are two agendas evolving simultaneously. The one that has to do with the ceasefire in phase 2, whereby I think Netanyahu is going to be buying time, trying to extend phase 1 instead of getting in seriously into phase 2. They're going to try to get as many captives as possible freed from Gaza in order to gain time and to see what the Egyptians are proposing come March 4th. What we know already from what's been leaked from the Egyptians about the Egyptian proposal is that they're thinking that once there is a real ceasefire in phase 2 and captives are released, that there will be safe areas within Gaza where they will relocate most of the Palestinians while reconstruction is happening. Apparently, that is the Egyptian idea. Again, while they also work out who is going to be managing all of that in Gaza. Will the Palestinian Authority be involved? I think probably the Egyptians would be leaning to having the Palestinian Authority involved. By the way, the Palestinian Authority is already involved in the Philadelphia corridor on the border between Gaza and Egypt as we speak. So the Palestinian Authority is trying to get ahead and try to get involved, but it will not be taking the lead if Netanyahu and Trump have their way. And that's why from now to March 4th, and in fact, after March 4th, we're going to be seeing a lot of back and forth, a lot of compromises being done between the various parties. And my sense is that Hamas is not going to be one of those parties. It probably will be like a sort of a secondary where the mediators will probably be telling them what is going on. And that's why what Hamas does or what Hamas decides to do in the coming weeks and months is going to be key. Because what we've heard this week from Hamas was that as long as there is no alternative to Hamas that is acceptable to Hamas, Hamas will continue to manage the affairs of Gaza. It will maintain its arms in Gaza. And that, hence the whole, theatrical or not so theatrical appearances of Hamas during every exchange every Saturday, which we'll probably see tomorrow. Hamas saying, I am here. You could not defeat me. If you cannot defeat me by war, you're not going to defeat me in diplomacy. And hence, we don't know.
All right. Marwan Bishara, Al Jazeera senior political analyst. Great to get your perspective. Thanks, Marwan.